Destination Medicine is a joint project of the regional training hubs. This podcast series brings you medical students' accounts of their experience in applying to study medicine. Welcome to Destination Medicine. I'm Peter Letts. Natalie Vear is a fourth-year medical student at the University of Notre Dame, Sydney, currently completing her clinical training in Wagga Wagga, and her pathway into medicine hasn't quite been a linear one. Before medical school, Nat became an exercise physiologist, completed a PhD in exercise cardio-oncology, and worked as a postdoctoral research fellow. But underneath all of that academic success was a kid from suburban Queensland who always dreamed of life in the country. Now fully immersed in rural training, Natalie has discovered not only the richness of regional medicine, but also a thriving research culture, strong community connections, and a lifestyle, she says, the little girl who used to play in the mud pretending to be a farmer could only dream of. From research and rural generalism to horse riding and sporting clubs, join Nat as she chats to Nicole Goodman about taking the leap into rural medicine and discovering just how much opportunity exists outside the city. But first, Nicole asks Nat what drew this self-described city girl toward medicine and ultimately toward rural life.
I suppose I could break that down into a few factors. So ever since I was a young kid, I have always loved the countryside. I was that kid that was out in my suburban cul-de-sac down in the grass reserve near where I lived, pretending I was farming, swinging from trees, playing in the creek, things like that. So I've always loved the outdoors. And my dad comes from a long line of farmers himself. So I grew up with stories of how he grew up on the land. And it kind of lit this desire in me to want to experience that myself. And then when I was in my mid-20s and thinking about what I wanted to do after my previous degree, I was thinking, medicine could be a really good option. And there was a number of factors influencing that. And I heard about this thing called rural generalism, and it was starting to really develop back then. And I thought, wow, this is how I could combine that desire to live and work rurally with a very fulfilling and interesting career.
You mentioned that you're from a rural background, a rural family. Are there any family members with a medical background at all, or are you really trailblazing?
So there's no direct family members in my family who are in medicine. My partner's family does have a few members who are in the medical field, but myself and my immediate family, we've been quite heavy users of the healthcare system over the course of my lifetime. And, so I have that experience in hospitals and GP clinics. And I kind of also, when I was planning this career change, I thought, I can kind of give back to the system that's already given us so much.
It's so true. It's so funny how some people never see the inside of a hospital and other people, it's like a second home.
Exactly.
Now, what were you doing prior to applying for medical school? Were you in the healthcare space or were you coming in cold?
I was very much in the healthcare space, but not in a way you might imagine. So I was a postdoctoral research fellow at the time of applying for medical school. And I was doing this after having completed a Bachelor of Exercise and Sport Sciences, majoring in clinical exercise physiology with honours. So I was an exercise physiologist by trade. And then I completed a PhD in exercise cardio-oncology, and then did my research fellowship. So I have been involved in the healthcare field for quite a number of years prior to coming into medical school.
And so how did you find the application process for medical school?
I'll be honest, I read every single aspect of the GEMSIS website and the GAMSAT websites, but I steered very clear of the online forums that once I got into medical school, I heard they existed. I didn't know they existed prior to medical school. But basically, I just got myself acquainted with the process itself, and then I really just prepared a bit at the GAMSAT, and then I managed to get a score that was good enough to apply, and then applied for medical school, and the rest is history.
I wonder if exercise physiology played a part in, I'm not going to say ease, but with a comfortability perhaps of going into the GAMSAT.
I would definitely say so. I was very fortunate that I did a lot of biochemistry, anatomy, physiology during my undergraduate degree. So it actually was quite interesting as I was preparing for the GAMSAT to be opening up textbooks and websites looking at material that maybe I hadn't looked at for about 8 to 10 years. And I thought, wow, this is a blast from the past. But it did help me with the GAMSAT, definitely.
So, Nat, tell us how you ended up at Wagga.
So basically, when I was applying for the University of Notre Dame, I knew that they had a few rural clinical schools, and I knew that Wagga Wagga was one of those clinical schools. I'm very fortunate in that one of my partner's family members had actually come through here as a student a few years ago, and they raved about their year out here. So in first year, when we were putting our clinical year applications in, I put Wagga right at the top of my list. I'd come out here during my first year on a little road trip just to check out the town with my partner prior to listing it, to know what we were getting into, as you would say. And basically, I just heard such great reviews about the hospital that I really didn't have a second thought about where else I'd like to go. Wagga was always top of the list.
Yeah, right. And research in particular, obviously you have a bit of a passion for. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think ever since I was completing my undergrad degree, I did a small honours project as part of that degree, and I kind of got bitten by the research bug, as it were. I loved the processes behind doing good research and how it can affect outcomes not just for the people that the research is done on, but the wider community through clinical guidelines development, through revolutionary papers that can help to change practice, on a global scale. And I also love the minute detail that goes into research to actually make sure it's done well. So I was quite blown away by it. And basically a professor at my then university clinical school got wind of this, and he asked me if I'd like to do a PhD, and the rest was history. I started the PhD the following year.
And so what's it been like doing training at Wagga?
It has been amazing. I have had so many wonderful experiences whilst I've been here. So I have had amazing clinical experiences. I've been very well supervised and encouraged by all levels of the medical team, nursing teams, and allied health teams. I've also been able to explore research opportunities whilst I've been here as well.
And was that something that you were kind of confident in, that your interest in research was going to be fulfilled, or was there a bit of trepidation around that?
I must admit, when I first thought about going rural, I was a bit worried that there might not be the research opportunities that I'd come across in the metropolitan setting. And having been born and raised metropolitan and done all my prior research work metropolitan, I just didn't know what was out there. So during my preclinical years when I was still in Sydney, I did a lot of outreach activities with the Rural Doctors Network here in New South Wales. And pretty much every trip I went on, every town I went to, I'd be asking, what research is going on here at the moment? And more often than not, there would be a number of clinicians doing research. And that was really promising to me. And then when I came out here to Wagga, I started putting the feelers out. And the second you tell anyone you have research experience, suddenly everyone is asking you questions and wants your advice, which has been phenomenal.
You're in demand. You've become irreplaceable.
That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I very much have been involved with quite a few registrars, helping them, answer research questions and other junior medical students. So it's been very fulfilling.
I wonder, do you have a particular area of research? You've mentioned a couple, but do you have a particular area that you're specifically interested in?
I would say my most experience is in randomized control trials, so clinical trial research, but my medical school project has actually been more in the medical workforce development area. So really, in answer to your question, I'm interested in any research, and I'm very interested in research methodology. So when people come to me with a research question or a topic, I love working out with them, well, what is the research design that we should use to actually help you answer that question? So I would say that's probably my biggest interest in research at the moment is let's make research work the best we can, and how do we get it to work?
Mm. Do you have any particular study methods then that you employ from your focus on research?
I would say the advantage of doing research for a while, you get very, very good at finding evidence, and you get very, very good at answering questions quickly, knowing how to do a good targeted database or Google search can really save a lot of time. So I'd say that's been very helpful. And I think as well, I have quite a lot of experience actually being a tutor, like a university level tutor. So actually teaching students over the years and seeing how teaching methods changed over the years. So I was teaching before COVID and after COVID, so things did change a lot. And so seeing how different study methods have been used by different students, I could then pick and choose a few of those and have tried a few different methods over the last, nearly 4 years of my degree. But I would say with that, there is no one method that suits everyone. Personally, I'm not much into Anki or flashcards, whereas I have peers who love it and swear by it. I'm more of a attend the lectures, take notes, just try and be as actively engaged in class as much as possible. In my clinical years, spend as much time on placement with doctors and patients as I can to help absorb, everything that's being done around me. But you really can't go past a group study session, I would say, whether that be with your peers or with a more senior medical student who's doing, say, a peer-assisted study session. There's so many ways that you can study in medical school. Whatever works for you is the right thing to do.
Well, you've actually managed to achieve quite a bit in the research space. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I like to say I'm still an early career researcher, having got my PhD about 5 years ago now. But basically, I've had wonderful experiences out here in Wagga. I've been part of a local research conference committee for the last 2 years. And I must say, I'm blown away by the amount of research that's being done, not just by consultants, but also junior doctors, registrars, and medical students out in regional towns. I also had a lovely experience with the Riverina Regional Training Hub recently, and I presented a research seminar basically to a rural generalist workshop weekend in Tumut. And this was a great way to talk to medical students and some of the doctors who are in town and administrative staff as well, what the value of research is in a person's medical career. So it obviously isn't just you got to consider medical school research projects. For a lot of people who want to get onto training programs, a lot of training programs have a research component as well. So you have to be cognizant of that. And as I said to everyone, research also just opens up a lot of doors and can be a wonderful way to build your networks and to build more clinical guidelines and help influence future practice.
It's interesting too that you were a bit concerned about research opportunities in a rural setting. I think it talks a little bit to misplaced fears perhaps about not as many opportunities being available rurally as opposed to metro. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunities that have come up while doing your training in Wagga, and if you feel like you've missed out by not training in a metro setting?
I would like to say first and foremost, coming out rural will not be a detriment to your study or to your training. I firmly believe that wherever you go, if you put yourself out there, you will get the opportunities. And I have found that being rural, and I've heard this in previous episodes, there's less people, to almost fight with, as it were, to get those experiences. And I have had some wonderful experiences out here, not just with patients trusting me and allowing me to do things, but also consultants and registrars and junior doctors being happy for me to be involved in caring for patients. Probably a lot more hands-on than what I would get if I was at a metropolitan hospital.
I do want to ask you, now that you're living rurally, having rural experiences, studying rurally, how satisfied is the little girl who used to play in the mud, pretending to be a farmer? Are you loving every minute of rural life? What are some of the activities and experiences that you're having?
I still pinch myself every day that I get to live and study here. The little girl, I don't think she would even realize how amazing it actually is to live out rural. So little Natalie inside of me is very, very happy to be out here.
That is so beautiful. That's so beautiful to hear. I love that. That's amazing. So tell us about some of the things that you do. What else do you do in your downtime?
Yes, well, I like to say I don't have much downtime because I'm doing too much. So I'm a member of a number of running groups here in Wagga, which is very fun. I love it. I also go and do horse riding as well. Yes.
No wonder the little girl is so excited and so happy.
Exactly. She's most happy when I'm riding a horse, that's for sure.
Of course.
And, the landscape around Wagga itself is just beautiful as well. My partner and I, we love to go and do walks around Lake Albert, or we go to Pomegolana, a beautiful reserve out to the west of Wagga. We go down to the river and walk along the riverfront. It's just a beautiful town.
You've mentioned your partner a couple of times. How did you both navigate the idea of moving away from the city and making sure that both of your professional needs were met?
Well, it was a huge consideration because obviously it's good to get medical students and doctors out rural, but we've got to make sure their families can also come out rurally. So we did it in a bit of a stepped process. So as I've said previously, when I was considering coming out rural to Wagga, we did a road trip to actually come out here for a few days. And we met up with some locals while we were out here. They showed us around the town. We also were very fortunate to be here at the time of the Festival of W, which is a massive winter festival that happens here in Wagga each year. So that was awesome.
Great.
And I've recommended this to other students who are interested in coming to Wagga or any other regional town or rural town. Actually go out and visit that town before you apply to go to it. And it was the best way for us to realize that it was actually a really big, bustling place. It wasn't a tiny little town like we might have thought it was, that there was a lot of things to do outside of being in the hospital. And importantly, there was opportunities for my partner to be able to work here as well.
What does the future look like? Do you reckon you'll stay after you've finished your clinical training, or are you thinking of going back to the city?
Oh, I am staying rural 110%.
There you go. There you go.
I think one of the best things, and I would recommend this to any medical student who is going out rural, you will meet wonderful people in the hospitals, do not get me wrong, and in the medical clinics. You're also going to meet wonderful people out in the community. So I am part of a few run clubs. I am part of a social indoor soccer club. I'm part of a social cricket team as well. And I have met so many wonderful people through these teams. And it's actually really nice to be able to meet up with people and not talk about medicine sometimes.
Nat, you're in your final year of your medical degree. What is it, do you think, about medicine that you just could never have prepared for?
I think, honestly, it's actually the number of opportunities that you will be presented with as a medical student. Now, this is whether you're rural or metropolitan based. There are just so many things you can do academically, community focused, volunteer work. You can be asked to be an advocate for a number of different things as well. And as you become a more senior medical student, you can become a voice to more junior medical students and to students who are wanting to get into medical school. And between me, like myself, and the 8 other students that are out here in Wagga at the moment in my cohort, we all do a number of different things that are extracurricular to doing our medical degree as well.
As we wrap up, Nat, for those who might be a little bit nervous about applying or maybe in two minds about doing a rural placement, what would your advice be?
I would say go for it. You will not regret it. But in saying that, I would also say prepare yourself. So give yourself the best chance to maximize your rural placement. So whether that means you go on and do a bit of research about the place you're going, whether you know students or anyone who lives in the location that you're going to and can have a chat to them about what it's like to live and work in those regions. Or if you're like me and have been involved with a number of outreach activities through the Rural Doctors Network in New South Wales and Next Gen Medics with Heart of Australia up in Queensland, actually getting yourself out to these communities in a supportive environment is the best way to help overcome some of those fears. And like I did, ask the questions. No question is silly. There are a lot of questions that might be stereotypes, but until you actually ask that question yourself and get an answer from people who know the answer to that question, it can help to abate a lot of fears. And if you're like me, just get you even more excited to come out rural.
Natalie Vear, fourth-year medical student at the University of Notre Dame, Sydney, completing clinical training at Wagga Wagga Base Hospital. This is Destination Medicine. Thanks for listening. Regional training hubs are supported by funding from the Australian Government under the Rural Health Multidisciplinary Training Program.